My name is Eche Egbuonu and I'm a mental wellness advocate. I put on events exploring mental health in the Black community, and what I like to do is bring people together, so we're creating those community connections. Something interesting about myself, earlier this year I walked for 17 hours taking 105,000 steps to raise money for rough sleepers. So REPSOC stands for Reparation Society, and it's all about health and well-being. Right now there's a big emphasis on mental wellness, and so putting together these events, giving people a space to share, but then at the same time we're thinking about what we can do on a community level. So we allow the expression, but we're also building. So I think that approach has allowed me to meet people who are doing great work in the community, and being able to connect these people. I think those are some of the best moments, when you connect somebody with someone who's actually on the same wavelength as them. And I know that there are a lot of action takers, and the thing about this particular kind of event is it attracts a certain kind of person. So I always wondered, what happens when you fill a room with people who are ready and willing to put their time, their effort into building their community? And I think continuing this, great things are and will continue to happen. I think there's a great stigma when it comes to discussing mental health, particularly for young Black men. And so being able to put myself out there, share the story, is bit by bit breaking down the stigma, expanding the conversation, and at the same time showing people that it is possible to be candid about this, and it is possible to overcome certain obstacles and hurdles. So I would say there's a double aspect there, in serving as a kind of living, breathing testimony, and also breaking down the stigma. What inspired me? So I had my own bout of severe mental illness, and off the back of that I decided to share my story on a one-off occasion for Black History Month. But in doing that event, people reached out to me and they were saying this happened to me or one of my family members, and then I realized this is something that is very prevalent, and for a lot of people it is quite difficult to actually speak out. And so I said, you know what, let me keep doing this, let me keep putting on the event and then see where things will go. I will say there was an internal desire in me when I was at the lowest point in my life. Something said, this isn't you. And I think listening to that voice is what has put me on this path of recovery, and now pushing forwards into actually building and serving the community. What I hope to achieve is to be able to, particularly to reach out to young people, because for me one of the key moments or the key points was that university experience. And so being able to reach out to young people, breaking down the stigma, and then being able to connect people with resources and services in the community, because I believe ultimately that prevention is better than cure. So if we can identify some of the things within our power that we can change, I think that would be a big dream of mine. And so of course we continue the conversation, but now if people are able to access different kinds of therapy, whether it's arts therapy, talking therapy, counseling session, whatever it is that can act as a healthy coping mechanism, being able to develop these solutions, or at the worst case connect people with those who are providing those solutions on a big grand scale is what I'm envisioning. Putting on events is very anxiety inducing. I think you have this vision, and then you're thinking, is anybody gonna come? Does anybody care about what I'm doing? Am I gonna end up losing money? And I think that's one thing that it would be useful to know, but then you learn through the experience anyway. So anyone trying to get into the event space, I would say if you can find somebody else, find a team or a group, because when you're doing it individually, then you're bearing the brunt of the risk, and maybe someone to bounce ideas off and actually coordinate the logistics. So definitely, if you can, find some people who are on the same wavelength as you. Now, when it comes to my 16-year-old self, I think the advice would be quite simple. Don't lose your creativity. Continue to create, foster your creativity. I see so many people suffering in the world and thinking, okay, how can I be of service? How can I help people? I think that's the drive. It's a kind of spiritual thing in that sense. There's a need to help people, and I think I'm at my happiest when I'm helping others. And so it's just continuing to push that boundary. And there's this concept that Albert Einstein encapsulated very well. And he talked about our sphere of consciousness. And for a lot of people, it's quite small and it radiates just around themselves. And so what I'm trying to do is expand that sphere of consciousness and actively put people before myself. Ultimate goals in life is to create a platform, bring people together. There's so many different things that I want to do, but I know at the heart of it is creation. And one of my close friends came up with this brilliant concept, which was about having less attachments but creating more connections. And I think that is something that I'm trying to live by and incorporate in all of the things that I'm doing, because it is hard, despite all of the technology that we have, to form these genuine connections with people. And so it's trying to ultimately just bring people together and help people achieve that sense of well-being from a physical perspective, qualified personal trainer. From the mental health perspective, I've got my own testimony. And then once we've sorted that out, then maybe we can explore some of these higher spiritual concepts as well. Role model, my mother. I think in the 25 years we've been in London, I've just seen an incredible drive. I don't know where she gets her energy from, but I've looked at that. I've learned so much wisdom from her, and that ability and determination to help her family regardless. It's something that I've implemented in my life. And I would say my big brother as well, because I've seen from a young age, I've seen him do things which has opened my mind to what is possible. Oh, he wrote a book. Oh, he went to America to coach. I'm thinking, okay, so just seeing these things are possible, it now makes it easier for you when it comes to making that leap of faith. Biggest setback was getting sectioned in 2015, spending 3 weeks inside the mental health ward, and now having to rebuild my life. My career trajectory had completely broken, and being at that lowest point, and there's parts of your life that's missing, memories, belongings, and so having to rebuild from there, that's been most definitely the biggest setback. How did I overcome it? I would say honesty, accountability, open-mindedness. Open-mindedness in the sense that being receptive to new information, forms of treatment. Accountability, realizing what did I do that led to me getting into this situation, and what control do I have to get myself out of this situation. And I would say that and then furthermore, investing in personal development and growth. That's been a real catalyst for growth and repair. And I would say a combination of these three things has allowed me to be at a point that I'm better than I've ever been on all dimensions when we're talking about emotionally, physically, spiritually. So being able to take that traumatic experience and flip it into a transformative experience, and now having the resilience and this story to share with others. Biggest accomplishment, I think if you ask me in about 3 months, that I'll be able to answer that, because I've got a book launch happening, and I've now decided to also release a musical project. So the fact that these two are happening together, that will be the biggest accomplishment thus far, that release. I'm passionate about serving, helping people, but alongside that, music. Music is one of my biggest passions. I think it will be easier for me to go without food for 48 hours than it would be to go without music for 48 hours. So a bit about my story. In 2015, I went through something called mania. Now, mania is a elevated state of mood. So I was sleeping less, sometimes for 0 hours in the day, but I had more energy than everybody else in my family. And so at first, this seemed like a blessing, but my behavior with time became more and more erratic, giving away belongings, making risky decisions, investments, took out a whole bunch of credit cards, got myself in debt. I wasn't aware of consequences. that part of your brain that keeps you in check was gone. So disinhibited, lots of energy. My mind is racing thoughts, ideas. I can't keep still. And so after a few weeks in this state of mind, quit my job on a whim, and now it was sectioned. Spent 3 weeks inside the mental health hospital, diagnosed with bipolar disorder, introduced to medication very quickly, and thus the cycle begins up and down. So mania is the high point of mood, and then you got depression, which is the low state of mood, and bipolar disorder is a fluctuation between these two states. Now, upon receiving the diagnosis, the pattern was now established. Up and down, up and down. And so being caught in that cycle is devastating, because you're trying to build, you're trying to make progress, but then the depression kicks in and you lose all momentum. And so I was stuck in this period for, I guess, 3 years. And it was difficult for me to envision living like this into my 30s. So I was determined to find a way to break from that cycle and achieve some semblance of stability. Because one thing I refuse to do is to be defined by the diagnosis. And to now have this diagnosis on my back, meaning that I can't pursue this job or you can't do this particular project. And so using the diagnosis, it's there, but it's not something that I'm going to let define me. And so I've been on this journey of recovery, repair, reflection. Resilience has been tested, hit ground zero, that black hole, absorbing all light from people trying to support me. So having seen these dark periods and then having seen what mania is, I now realize that for me anyway, both of these states exist within me. And the energy, the drive from the mania is still there, and then depression is always potentially available as well. But I realize that there is agency and there is a way that you can live almost in harmony, almost being equally poised. So not letting the highs overwhelm you and then not letting the lows overwhelm you either. And so, ironically, being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it was almost like I had to break in two to now be able to come back in a more holistic way.
Text or call?
Cool.
Night out or night in?
Night in.
Fill in the blank. Beyonce is?
Beyonce was great in Destiny's Child.
Save or spend?
Save.
Favourite holiday?
Nigeria.
Tall or short?
Short.
Invisibility or super speed?
Super speed.
Burger King or McDonald's?
McDonald's.
Favourite colour?
Blue.
Favourite person?
My mum.
Favourite song?
Amy Winehouse, He Can Only Hold Her.
Movies or series?
Series.
Run or walk?
Walk.
Sun or snow?
Sun, please.
Cats or dogs?
Reluctantly, I'm going to go with cats. My name is Eche Egbuonu, and this is Making Moves by Issamovement.